once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Face it, I fucked up. I trusted you. I thought for sure, you know, when we did that last podcast that it was going to be shelved and we were never going to use it.
That's what I thought too.
And then you uploaded it. You used it.
I didn't upload it.
I didn't do it. I mean, it's my fault. Yeah, you know, and I regret the error, but I didn't do it.
Maybe it was Reginald.
Hmm.
He's always trying to worm his way into the show. Maybe if he thinks that you get mad and storm off.
Reginald starts with R. Raccoons start with R. I'm scared. I need a hug.
I'll give you one from 6 feet away. Or we could do like that family did when they wanted to hug the grandmother. They they built that plastic curtain with arms in it.
Oh, kind of like Bubble Boy.
Yeah.
Yay.
I got to admit, as someone who's not a big fan of hugs, I will love the fact that we have to stay socially distant. Hugging. No, I don't want to get sick.
No. Yeah. Well, I actually got some news on that front, but we'll save it for Freaking and Geeking.
Oh, okay.
But what I was asking, are comic shops open yet?
Now, it depends on your state if your state is opening up to non-essential businesses. And some states, they have to say, okay, here's our plan for opening and everything. I know that in Minnesota, our stay-at-home order dissolves on Sunday night. And to the bars and restaurants and some other places, gyms can't open yet. But other places can, non-essential businesses, if they follow
I've been actually following a friend of mine who's a beautician, and they're all upset because they're not opening yet. They've actually been most of them have been practicing sanitation for years because of the way their work is. And so they're all like, what more do we got to do? We've already been doing it for years.
The problem is you're in contact with someone for a long period of time. And for the most part, it's going to be skin-to-skin contact.
Right.
We just know comic books.
So we're recording this on the 15th. It's going to drop on the 18th. So on the 18th, shops in Minnesota anyways will be open. On the 20th, shit ships.
Well,
I believe
ships
means
before then.
Yeah,
to be put out on the 20th, except for DC, which has changed their street date to the 19th. Even through Diamond.
Why?
Simple.
Because they're idiots?
No, because in bookstores, you know, when you go to Target or you go to Barnes & Noble, new stuff is put out on Tuesday.
I don't even know if that matters. I don't think Barnes & Noble get their comic books the same day as a comic shop does. It used to be on the newsstand. They would get their stuff within a week of it dropping.
2 weeks. Comic shops were 2 weeks ahead of newsstands. Here's why it matters, Joe. It's not that comic shops are having the issue. It's, okay, stuff comes out on a Tuesday in bookstores and Target and everywhere else. And Amazon and online. So that means either it's shipped and it's in comic shops for 6 days before it's in those shops. And I tell you what, they are not happy about that. And you do not want to piss off Amazon. Or comic shops get it a day later. And comic shops are pissy about that. And you know, comic shops, if they don't get something, if they're not catered to, they lose their minds. Look at what happened with the Walmart books. They lost their freaking minds. Then DC went, okay, we've been able to renegotiate the contract. You have the books. And most comic shops
with a different cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Comic shops were like, who cares? Sales in the comic shop still don't. They're low. They want it. They don't care if it's like they're almost like 2-year-olds. I want it. I want it. I want it. Okay, you can have it. I don't care.
I just don't see people running to Barnes and Noble or Walmart the way comic geeks do. So to me, it's a case where I don't think it matters, because the people, and again, you and I ain't this way because we get our stuff mailed to us. But when we were weekly connoisseurs and we would be there every week, most of the time, it didn't matter. It didn't matter even when we were worried about that, because you knew I was going to pull what you wanted. So again, if you have a pull list with your shop, to me, it's such a non-issue. It might have been a bigger issue and had, say, like with Hot Comics, if I got my books sent to me and then I got them on the shelf either days or hours after, like, say, Shinder's put them out. And what the weird thing was is that Shinder's got their books before anybody else, but they never got them out.
Yeah, Shinder's would get the books Thursday night. And there were a few shops in town that would get their books Thursday night. I remember the College of Comic Book Knowledge had everything out Thursday night. Shinder's got the books at the same time. When did we get our books? Maybe sometime between noon and 3 in the afternoon on Friday.
Now, that's not to say Shinder's didn't get their books.
Yeah,
what
they just didn't get them out to the other stores.
Yeah, they would all go to wherever. Was it downtown?
Yep, downtown would get everything.
God knows what downtown would do with them. I don't know if they were picking out the hot things or just, okay, no, one to you.
It was more, okay, here's the books for, let's just use Eden Prairie. Okay, they would order all the books for all the shops. Books for Eden Prairie come in Thursday night. They're already boxed. They're all set. And they only do deliveries once a day. So the delivery for Thursday had already gone. So in the morning, they'd load up one of the Shinder's trucks. They'd go, okay, well, the person who goes to Eden Prairie, they also go to Edina, and over to Burnsville, and then Eden Prairie. And there was no hurry. You know, comics were no different from baseball cards, were no different from magazine reorders, no different from porn, from any of it. It's nope, you get it when you get it during the day. Now, the thing is, you had shops that were putting them out Thursday night, and some shops that were putting them out on Friday. And then when Diamond took over, by then it was Wednesday. And everything was sent via UPS. So some shops were getting them Tuesday, putting them out on Tuesday. Some were getting them Wednesday, putting them out on Wednesday. Some, in more remote areas, they weren't getting them till Thursday or Friday, until Diamond said, all right, we're going to ship, so there is one day. You'll get them early so you can process them, but you cannot put them out until thus and such day. And I don't remember when that happened, but that was a big deal because comic shops were like,
tell you,
what do you mean we can't put them out?
It happened after Crazy Comics.
Okay.
Because that was something I remember that we talked about and that I thought you could get because, again, we got magazine from, and what was it called? Video Update? It was it was a magazine that went to video stores. And it was funny because they were going through the same issues that comic shops already been hammered with. I'm talking about having to pay for your point of sale merchandise, the flyers and the cardboard cutouts, which up until then, these shops got for free. Disney would send out, granted, they're operating on a much bigger scale than a comic shop. But for an independent video store to suddenly be told, well, if you want this big Fantasia display, you're going to have to pay for it or whatever. And they would, same thing, like Cory said, you would get stuff with a street date. And if you put it out earlier, there were penalties. You might not get stuff shipped to you. You might not be able to qualify for co-op. Well, just like Cory said, Could you imagine saying that at the time? Now it's Amazon. Then it was Walmart. They get the shit, they put it out. They not paying attention. And people would be like, hey, I just went to Walmart. I bought it. Here's the receipt. What are you going to do about it? Well, they're not going to do anything. They want to piss off Walmart. And it just went round and round. And at the time I had my shops, and again, 90 to 2001 for Hot Comics and 2004, 2006 for Crazy Comics, Diamond didn't want that role. They didn't want to be the enforcers. And I knew exactly what happened. I mean, there were even guys in the Hot Comics chain that would be like, whoop, get the books, putting them on. I ain't doing no street date. So, yeah, it was a headache. But obviously they figured out how to do it, because now I could go in on Tuesday and see the Source guys busy trying to not only take care of the hundreds of subscribers they have, but also get everything organized, move everything from last week to the last week bin, clear off enough space for this week, and things that were in the last week bins put into the remaining A to Z shelf. And you're talking, they had to easily have, 3,000 feet, maybe more?
Oh, yeah.
Just linear feet of just from point A to point B, just like my shop did. You know, I spent all day Tuesday moving stuff around, waiting for Wednesday when it finally got going. So yeah, I can see where for Diamond it was a big headache. Obviously not now, and again maybe less now because DC can pretty much set the terms they want. I don't know if Marvel cares because Marvel doesn't ship comics newsstand anymore. Graphic novels, I don't know. Be interesting to see how these guys feel about. Hey, you know what? We're not going to release these anymore. They're just going to be digital. Well, great. I've got 1 through 4, and I'm getting 5 and 6. Why don't you? Yeah. So.
But I think one of the things that's driving this that we talk about, but very, very few other people are. DC is pushing very, very hard into the young adult market. And I will give you a statistic to tell you why, Joe. Since the COVID-19 shutdown, book sales have gone up around 10%. Graphic novel sales have gone up 38 to 40%, especially in the young adult bracket. That's where enormous amounts of the growth are. It's why Boom puts out books like that. It's why DC pushed really hard into that market. It's why Marvel's pushing into that market. The reason companies do something, they don't just do it, because, they don't just do it. They do it because there's money invested. And for DC, they're pushing hard into the book market. They're going to want to make the book market happy. And less of their money is going to come from comic shops, which is why I think they, in the past, have been the comic shop's best friend. And now they're kind of more like Marvel in that comic shops, you take what you get.
Pretty much. It's like I rallied about, was it last week? I forget, I rally a lot. But, comic book shops are an acronym. They're a dying breed. They're what was the term? A niche market. That's what I used. Yeah. I even called myself that when I had Hot Comics. I cater to a very small audience. How small? Cory, tell them what the best-selling comic book sells at.
Let's see. Before the shutdown, the best-selling comic that wasn't a huge event usually sells about 125,000 copies.
Across.
And by the time you get down to the number, by the time you get down to the number 20 book, you're selling 50,000 copies.
Yeah. No, see, we're not selling to a growing market anyways. Graphic novels might be something different. Cory, tell them, Strode, what's the number 1 selling graphic novel?
Number 1 selling graphic novel so far this year is the new Dogman book, which shipped 5 million copies and has gone to a second printing after that. So whenever anybody says,
shop.
comics are dying, it's like, No, they're not. 5 million copies. 5.
And
I
there's
can't
probably,
think of a novel that has sold 5 million copies in the last 10 years.
I can probably go to every comic shop in town and there'll be maybe 2 or 3 that'll actually have one on the shelves. So, yeah, we're a dying breed, but we got 4 years and 450 plus podcasts out of it. So
10 years.
And I'll
4 years, 10 years.
I have something when we get to our long promise reviews that will prove to you that comics will always be around. Marvel, DC, and comic shops may not be, but there will always be comic books going on somewhere.
Well, I got a couple other pieces of news before we get to those reviews. First off, comics ship for placement in stores on 5/20 or 5/19, depending on. And then previews is coming out, and it will be for 2 months. Because remember, they said they were just going to skip a month. Well, everything's kind of been shut down for 2 months. So the next previews will have, August and September in it. So, oh my God, is that one going to be a monster?
Right.
DC Generations has officially been pulled. And there are also upcoming miniseries from DC and Marvel that will be reconfigured, which may mean that they get delayed. It may mean they go digital only. It may mean they just are put out as original graphic novels. We don't know. But a lot of stuff that was basically in the pipeline, they're wondering if sales are going to be worth it. So they're going to want to see what happens when everything comes back. And, I'll get into more of this stuff when we get to Freaking and Geeking. But the comeback is getting branded by Diamond, which has good and bad points.
So what you're saying is this is an automatic, guaranteed future extra long previews episode.
Oh my
coming
God.
soon.
It'll have to be 2.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how big that previews will be. It's giving me a headache just thinking about it. Because previews is already, I have to read it in bunches because the print is tiny, the design is terrible, the way it's laid out just hurts. Because here's an ad. Oh, cool! I want to get that book. Where is it? Should be on the next page.
Nope.
How about the next page?
How about the last
after
page?
That?
Still waiting for those special Judge Dredd books that were advertised, and we never saw them anywhere. Not even at shops that we would.
Came to the U.S. Oh, one other thing.
Oh, more. There's more.
Diamond UK will now ship every 2 weeks.
So are you saying we should move to UK so we can do a twice a week podcast because we'll have so many comics to review?
No, it'll be every other week, Joe.
Oh, well, we already beat that.
Yeah. So, comic reviews. Let's do some real ones now. Let's do some stuff that people might actually want to go buy.
All right.
Because, this is dropping on Monday. Your comic shop will have new stuff 2 days from today. Go to your comic shop, buy stuff.
And odds are good the stuff we'll be talking about has already been there.
Yeah. So, Joe, what's first?
Infinite Punishment, Shadows of War. This is a 3-issue miniseries from Fentico Enterprises. I think I mentioned it as one of the I'm going to buy this, when we do our preview show. I don't know how to review this one because it's really bizarre. Okay, so the first issue starts, and it gives you kind of a synopsis, and the art is stylish, and by stylish I mean the creator who does the art, Marcelo Trum. It's his style, and you either like it or you don't. But I enjoyed it. But the story in the first issues seems to be chopped up in 3 different sections, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And again, I watched The Witcher. I figured it out. It was tales in different time and things like that. The art was fairly enjoyable, and of course, the main character is drawn in a very seductive, hot type way because name's Lilith, and obviously the hot demon. So then issue 2 comes around, and it gives us a story so far, which helped because I had no idea what the hell was going on in previous issue. And I went back and I read it, and I'm like, okay, it still seems like 3 parts of a different story. The second issue was a little better. The story seemed complete. There were a couple things that were never touched on that were in the first issue. If anything, this might have been kind of a prequel. I don't know. It's kind of a holy mess trying to figure out what happens and things like this. But it's only a 3-issue series, so I figure I get to the 3rd issue, and it starts out while working on the last book of the series, creator Marcelo Traum died suddenly. For weeks after the news broke, the person writing this, Jim Whiting, wasn't sure what to do about this issue. Just as I was ready to cancel the book, Marcelo's wife, Juliana, reached out to me. Marcelo would have wanted the book to come out, and so do I. But I want his art printed as is, as Marcelo was so proud of the fact that he did it all himself. So the last issue ever, and again, it ends on a cliffhanger because they were planning to see how sales were and if it would go on to another one, is not inked. It's not polished. It's actually kind of neat to watch because you could see the pencil lines and the things like this in there. Again, I'm not an artist. I can't really describe it. And the story was pretty good. It continued well from the second issue. Still didn't really cover whatever the hell was going on in the first issue, but it's done. I mean, game over. What a hell of a way to end an issue. I'm glad I bought it. If anything, I blindly kind of gave support to Juliana and her husband's work. But as far as reading it, I don't know. What do we say? We like to say buy,
borrow, or ignore.
It tugs at my heart that he passed away and that we see his work. But, for the most part, this is a rare ignore for me because I can't really advocate buying something that you're never going to see the end of, although you do get all 3 issues. And again, check it out. Look at the art. There's been plenty of times I've read stories that, just won't be continued, but they are in and of themselves a nice little story. Kind of like the first time we saw Star Wars. We had no idea there'd be a sequel, but it was set up for one. That said, I bought it, and I don't know, I read it, but this is probably not one that I will keep. So, again, if you want to check it out, assuming your friendly neighborhood comic shop ordered it, Infinite Punishment, Shadows of War, from, they say, Fantico. Cory?
The first one I'm going to review is a digital trade paperback that Marvel put out because nothing's come out. Marvel put out a few what they're calling digital trade paperbacks. So it's kind of odd collections of things. And the one I'm going to review first off is Avengers Subterranean Wars. And where this is from, let me pull it up here because there's no way I'm listing all the creators. No way. Because what this is the main story from Avengers Annual number 20, Incredible Hulk Annual number 17, Namor the Submariner Annual number 1, Iron Man Annual number 12, and West Coast Avengers Annual number 6. The story is mostly driven by Roy Thomas. At this point, Roy was working with his spouse, Dan Thomas. There are other writers. There are a bunch of artists because it flows through different books. Marvel would have these annual crossovers. First, they did all the annuals crossover. Then it's okay. No, wait. First, it was okay. The annuals will cross over in one story. these 4 will be a story, these 4 will be a story. And then they did all the annuals crossover, such as the Evolutionary War and, what was the other one? Oh, Atlantis Attacks. But this one is a very Roy Thomas story in that there are 3 rulers of underground worlds, plus the Eternals, the Deviants, and the Mutates ran underground worlds. So there's a war between all of them to kind of sort all of this stuff out. For a 5-part crossover that goes into different books and different characters, I thought it flowed real well. It probably helped that Roy Thomas wrote 3 of the 5. The art is late 80s, early 90s Marvel, not image art. It does not look good in a digital format. It probably looked good on the Mando paper back then. But now you could tell that I don't know if they were behind or they just were speeding through, but the inking and coloring are both very, very sloppy and do not come over well in the digital format. The story itself is my wheelhouse of Marvel. Roy Thomas looks around, says, oh, look at this. This is kind of a mess. Let's do a story that cleans it up. And rather than a Roy Thomas continuity dump, although there are 3 or 4 different Roy Thomas continuity dumps, Joe, you know the type where he brings together threads. There's a minor character that showed up in an early Iron Man and then appeared in like 3 other books. So he weaves her story all together from all of that in a 2-page spread with a hell of a lot of text.
Which is an amazing thing for continuity droolers like me, but I got to be very jarring for a casual reader.
Oh, and even me who likes that kind of stuff, it's like, oh, this is so dry. This is so dry. This is like an encyclopedia entry. The story has a lot of action. Each annual actually tells a complete story while leaving threads for the other ones to grab onto. And this is kind of that transition from Marvel 70s and 80s, where it was where continuity would be a building block for the story, whereas later in the 90s, continuity became kind of a millstone that would drag these stories down to where it's like, oh my God, you're doing a 20-part story to explain an inconsistency in something 10 months ago. However, first off, the art is so damn mediocre. It's not bad. It's just there. This
is back when they just went and they got the shit out on time and they didn't really care as long as it was out.
Yeah. If they're going for realistic art like John Buscema, the anatomy is way all over the place. If they're going for more of the impressionistic stuff like the Image Boys did, where we want to show action, it's not inked well enough for that. There are pages where you could tell the colorist did not give a shit at all, because the one main character in the panel has separate colors and everybody else, knock him out in yellow, knock him out in red, knock him out. If you read it, you'll see the laziness. The other thing is all of these stories are out on Marvel Unlimited. So they're basically just collecting them as kind of a, hey, we still have content. They're repurposing old content, which, I got to be honest, a lot of people are doing. If you watch cable TV, they are repurposing tons of old content, especially the sports channels, because they got no sports to show. Or the shows where they do a lot of reality TV shows. Well, they can't film any reality TV shows, so they're doing clip packages and best ofs and all that. So this is kind of what everybody else is doing in other mediums. I get that. I'm going to say that this is an ignore. If you've got Marvel Unlimited, you can read the story there. You don't need to buy it separately. It's not good enough to buy separately. It's not terrible. It's just kind of your standard. This is a nice way to pass an hour or two while reading superhero funny books. The next book I have is a book from Boom Studios. I do a couple of Boom Studio books. This one is a first issue only, because only the first issue came out before everything shut down, and it's called King of Nowhere. It's written by W. Maxwell Prince, drawn by Tyler Jenkins. It's the first of a 5-part miniseries. The story begins with a character who wakes up and talks about how he ends up he's a mess. He's been wandering around homeless. He's sleeping a lot, and he wakes up and thinks that he's still in a dream. And he is brought to a town called Nowhere, which is a very odd town in that it looks kind of like a small western town. And it is filled with anthropomorphic people. People who are part animal, but not all of them are part animal, and no one sees this as strange. When he gets to town, he sees that one of the people there is being harassed and treated poorly. He steps in, saves the person. Very much the trope of the Western gunslinger coming to town to save somebody, not knowing what's going on in the town. It's well drawn in that it fits a certain style. It looks to me like it was colored using watercolors rather than computer coloring and everything. So it has kind of that almost blurry watercolor style art, which fits the story. I don't know if everybody's going to like it, but I thought it fit the story well. Also, at the end of the story, someone is coming to Nowhere, hunting this guy because there's something in this guy's past. He, however, still thinks it's all a dream. So we get a decent hook. We kind of know what's going on. I'm going to give this a borrow in that I wouldn't be buying it as regular issues. This is very much something that should be a trade paperback, but in order to amortize the cost, they have to split it into 5 comic books so that it can make, a certain amount of money, so that then when it's a trade paperback, okay, we've already paid the artist and the writer and made back our costs on creating it. Now when we have the trade paperback, it can make more profit.
There's no fear. Crazy Joe was here.
Oh! So your wife is breaking glasses now.
Not only glasses, but the cherished one we used on the fill-in episode. That.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. She
It's-
worries that you're going to break her expensive glasses. He's the one who breaks it.
Yes. It's not only that, but the
I'm not gonna say
wine.
anything.
The wine. All right. Speaking of craziness, the next one up I'm going to review is Berserker Unbound from Dark Horse Comics. This is a 4-issue.
That is a manga, isn't it?
No. This is the one that Jeff Lemire and Mike Deodato Jr. did with Frank Martin and Stephen Wands. And if you ever wanted to wonder what Mike Deodato Jr. would do with Conan, this is not a bad place to look. The story's pretty straightforward. The Berserker finds out that everything he's ever had in his life has been destroyed. And while the foes that did it attack him, and believe me, they probably wish they didn't, because he pretty much, kicks ass and doesn't take names. I don't think there's any bubblegum involved. He ends up accidentally, or on purpose, a little vague on that, finds himself in modern day times, where he's found by a homeless person. And as the story progresses, obviously the foes find their way to current times. There's fighting, there's misunderstanding, there's everything you'd expect from Conan brought to this world. I use that because the Berserker is the kind of the archetype there, but the story is itself its own. You're not going to look at this, at least I didn't look at it and go, oh yeah, there's a lot of Conan in here. Unless, of course, you read that What If Conan from how many years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What is it? Wasn't that What If number 13? What if
I
Conan
believe so.
walked the day?
It was promised so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Deodato.
Beautiful art on that, too, by John Buscema.
Oh, and Mike Deodato Jr. knocks it out of the ballpark here. I mean, the guy has it. I know he's notoriously slow. If he could do a monthly, oh, sweet bejesus, you'd make some money on it. The story was fun. It was easy to follow. I did enjoy it. It sets itself up nicely for a sequel if they ever do want to revisit it. I know the first 4 issues are out. I believe the graphic novel was solicited. I think I pointed it out. And again, it might be in the stores even as we speak. So put the podcast on hold and pause it and call your comic shop and ask for a copy, because this one is definitely in the buy category. Because like I said, not only did I enjoy the story, it had a good vibe to it. Tugged a little bit at the heartstrings, and because there's stuff that they use in the Berserker background that just wouldn't fit in the Conan one. And I would imagine the creators are bristling that I'm using the Conan comparison, but that's really the best thing. If you like that type of stuff, if you like time travel, if you love Mike Deodato Jr.'s art, this is definitely one for you. And like I said, I put this one solidly in the buy category.
Next one I have is Join the Future, written by Zach Kaplan and drawn by Peter Kowalski. It's from Aftershock Comics. I do not know if it's a miniseries or a regular series, but I did get the first issue. And it is a science fiction story. It is set, we begin in a perfect city. It's a gleaming city. Everybody has everything they need. There are people who go around and make sure that people have what they need. The best food, the best medical care, the best life. And we see what's going on in the city. Then we go to outside the city, where there are people who have chosen not to become a part of that society. However, people are sent out to the cities outside, the other, where people are still hunting for food, and food is getting scarce. Animals are starting to run scarce. Supplies are starting to become scarce. And the sheriff in town is not happy that the people from the city keep coming to try and recruit people, so they are driven off. Once again, we find out more about the people who live in this city, but later, some sort of weaponized, people or robots show up to start killing everyone in this town that refused to come into the gleaming city. So there's obviously secrets going on in the gleaming city. There's obviously a reason why these people won't join. All this is, it's a first issue. It's very much a first issue kind of teaser. I liked the art. I liked the story did very well in that it would set up what's going on, and then it would focus on an individual, so that we got it from that person's point of view. What is it like in the city? Here's kind of the big picture. Now we're going to focus down on this person. What's it like outside? We kind of see the woods and we see the city, and then we focus down on this individual person. And in a lot of ways, it felt a lot like a Western, in that was a Western trope of civilization is coming to impose itself via the railroad or via becoming a state or whatever on this wild frontier. And this felt very much the same way with a science fiction-y edge. As a first issue, it grabbed me. I am going to be continuing it. Again, I don't know if it's a regular series or a mini series, but most Aftershock stuff is either a regular limited series, which is, 5, 6 issues, or an extended limited series where it goes for 12 to 15 to 20. But I liked it. I am giving it a buy, and I recommend it. Joe?
Cory, what was the first DC miniseries?
World of Krypton.
What was the second?
Untold Legends of the Batman.
And that's the one I chose. I decided
first
to do
by
a deep cut. Johnny the Burn.
And the second 2 issues were by
Jim, how do you say his last name?
Aparo.
Aparo.
Written by Len Wein. Do you know why Byrne did that first issue only?
I do not.
He was angling at Marvel to try and get them to give him a raise. And when they said, we don't know, he said, well, I could go over to DC. And they said, okay, we'll give you a contract. They didn't want him getting away. So basically, this is a mini-series John Byrne used to crowbar more money out of Jim Shooter with.
That's good to know. For me, again, this is way back in my golden age of comics. And, of course, that first wonderful World of Krypton. Actually, it was just World of Krypton, wasn't it? No, yep. Wonderful. It came out, and it was amazing. And, of course, the second, The Untold Legends of the Batman, was amazing. Again, this is pre-crisis continuity where they did a wonderful job of just fitting it together, all the little bits and pieces, like who's the guy who actually made the Batmobile? No, it wasn't Black Tech Wayne Market. Was it actually Joe Chill that killed his parents? Well, it was, but that wasn't the person who authorized the hit. Blah blah blah. It's a lot of fun.
Who was the first Batman?
And where did the costume come from? Who's the first Robin? Wasn't Dick Grayson? So this was just a lot of fun, putting together a lot of different things. And at the time, for a person like me I was a Marvel guy, not such a DC guy, to get this and then to see all the little threads get put together was just amazing. But Cory, do you ever say to people, I learned that in comic books?
Yes.
There is something in this that I learned, and it's something that I've used, and now that I know where it's from, I'm going to have to scan it and use it. But it starts where Bruce is working to become the best he can, and he trained himself, striving for physical perfection, and which when I turned 18, I could have been a living material, but he went to college and he studied his butt off in psychology and in criminology. Nowadays, it would be what do they call CSI stuff? But it'd be, forensics and which was part of
scientist, which oddly enough is what Barry Allen was too.
And his mom wasn't named Martha either. However, when he gets to law school, there's a story, and I'm just going to read it. The law professor goes, so they're in law class. Professor, 2 19-year-old boys steal a car for a joyride. Along the way, one of them changes his mind, asks to be let out of the car. Before his friend who is driving can comply, car accidentally strikes an old woman crossing the street and kills her. Should the boy who changed his mind still be charged with felony manslaughter? Mr. Wayne. Wayne gets up, says, granted, the second boy stole the car, professor, but he also had no part in the accidental death. I would find him guilty of car theft but not manslaughter. Law professor, and you would be wrong. Under the law, the second boy is just as guilty as complicity as if he had been behind the wheel. But is that justice, Professor Rexford? And this is the panel. No, Mr. Wayne, that is the law. And that has struck me. If ever I could say something in comic books affected my thinking in real life, it's that panel, because how many laws are there, either past, present, or being thought of, that have nothing to do with justice? And you see this in political fights all the time. Slavery was the law. Women voting, not being allowed to vote, was the law. Prohibition was the law. Just because it's the law doesn't mean it's justice, doesn't mean it's right. And if ever a comic book has cemented home something in my brain cells. This is it.
You have brain cells?
I did until I tried to sniff that wine you dropped. Oof, fireball for me. Anyways, Untold Legend of Batman, it was 3 issues, not terribly expensive on the eBay market. There's 3 different ones you can get. You can get the regular full-size comic ones, and then considered a second print was a series from MPI Auto Editions. Cory, do you remember what MPI Auto Editions had with them?
I know Power Records was the records, but I can't remember MPI.
Yeah, no, these were, and they're rare to find, but they were bundled with audio cassette tapes.
Oh, I never saw those.
I think those were the cases where they were probably put in Targets and that, or Kmart's, not really put in comic shops. The second prints are a little bit smaller. And if I can find where my handy dandy.
And they probably have cardboard covers too.
They do. They're cardboard covers. And again, I think instead of being a full size, they're probably maybe 8 by 6 or so. Wait a minute. Here we go. Oh, I was off. 9 by 6.
Okay.
So you can get the 3 MPI audio editions. Good luck finding them with the tape. I'd love to hear the tape. I got to check the YouTube, see what's available. Or you could do what I remember doing. Cory, did you ever get yourself some of that Batman brand name sweetened cereal when it came out?
Why, yes, I did.
At the time when the Michael Keaton Batman was out. And what did you do if you sent away in one of your I think you only had to, I don't know how many you had to buy, or if anything, if it was just one coupon. Remember what you could get, Cory?
You could get the comic. However, I never got those boxes. I got the one that had the Batman Bank.
Oh, yes.
To the box.
Yep. Yeah, I had one of those in the windows at Hot Comics for years until I ended up selling it to someone.
And didn't that someone try to eat the cereal?
Probably. Ugh.
I vaguely remember, and they went, oh, it's awful. And it's like, well, yeah,
it was.
bats in it would have gone rancid.
And it's a poor man's Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
That's one. First thing about the comic book, you'll see on either, if you get the video one, it'll say on the bottom corner across the bottom, MPI Audio Edition. The ones that you get for sending in the coupon from the Batman cereal would say Batman brand sweetened cereal. So. And they're not terribly expensive. You can usually find a decent set for under $10. I have no idea if it was ever published in a graphic novel, but if you hold on a second, I'll fire up the old.
It was published. I read it as a pocketbook.
Oh.
So just a regular little paperback book. That's how I read that, because I remember at the time it was at in regular bookstores. And I was just starting to buy DC, and I remember I picked it up, and it was, oh, this is really cool. And now that I'm older and understand more about comics history and everything, the fact that Len Wein actually went through and went, okay, I'm going to take all this weird crap from the last 30 years and so, and weave it into one story so that Batman's backstory makes sense, was a massive accomplishment. It was one of the things that DC and Marvel would do every so often that they don't do anymore. Well, I take that back. Marvel's starting to do it with those grand design books where Ed Piskin, I think is his name, goes through and says, okay, I'm going to tell this as if it was all planned from the beginning as one story. That's what Len Wein did with the Untold Legends of Batman. It's they did it with a few characters, and I always liked that idea.
I will mention a couple things. Joe Stanton worked on issue 3. If you weren't aware of that. Also, the reprint editions, instead of having ads and things in them, they reprint covers from the various Batman. For example, I've got number 2 open, and you open it up, and there's a black and white cover reprint, I should say, not the whole comic, of Batman number 109, and then to fill out, they have a Batman number 20 where, and underneath they're calling great moments in Batman's history. So, and there's the book 1 like Cory said. So yeah, this is a blast from the past. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend digging out a copy, or if you happen to luck out and find it in the back issues. Again, not terribly expensive. Even a near mint guide should only be anywhere from $5 to $10. 10 being like the audio edition thing I talked about. So, and if you're doing the variant covers, there's a lot of variants you can check out.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. And definitely, like I said, this was published 1980. So go back, dig it out, and have a little fun.
Cool. And it's one of those things where, your comic shop may not have a bunch of new stuff. So, hey, buy some of the stuff that's in the back issue bins.
See if they've got some old stuff.
I have another book from Boom called The Avant Guards. It is created and written by Carly Uston and illustrated by Noah Hayes. There are 8 issues out. It is a 12-issue maxi series. Only 8 issues are out so far. And 2 trade paperbacks that reprint 4 issues each. At an all-girls kind of magnet college, it's a Georgia O'Keeffe College of Art and Improvisation, I think it's called. A new student is recruited for a basketball team because these colleges do not have basketball teams, so they're starting to create a league. And she is recruited into the basketball team. She used to play basketball, actually had a basketball scholarship, but gave it up. And we don't know why. Over the 8 issues, the team is formed. They have a blowout in their first game, and we get a ton of soap opera stuff. Each character on the team, they only have enough people to make the team. So each character on the team has their own backstory, their own issues they're dealing with. The team itself needs to work to come together. The characters are, I'm not going to say stereotypes, but they're all kind of, they're stereotypes. You've got the one who's the overachiever. You've got the one who's the artist. You've got the one who's the quiet goth girl. The one who's the hippie who's into crystals and stuff. And as each issue kind of delves into each one of them as we go through the story of them putting this team together and meeting other teams in the league and where they got to get the money to pay for the league and things like that. The story is not aimed at me, but I still enjoyed it. This is very much aimed at the young adult audience. And for that, it works great. The art by Noah Hayes it's kind of a mix between American animation and manga. It's very expressive. It's very cartoony. It's very, very, very expressive. I think it's perfect for the story. And the story by Carly Uston, while it's not aimed at me, I still enjoyed it. I still thought, there's that period when you first go to college, which is a incredibly rich area for people to pull stories from, because you're kind of an adult, but not really. So you're really out on your own for the first time, but you're stumbling and falling, but you still have support from parents and institutions. So, big, horrible things can still happen, but it's not the end of the world. Emotions are always overblown, but not as overblown as if they were teenagers, sort of thing. I would say if you have a kid who's into young adult fiction, they'd really like this. I got sucked into the story, even though it's not aimed at me, which kind of shows how good it is. And I do want to read the end of it. I do want to know what's going to happen. I want to know where all of these characters are going to end up, if they could get the funding to have, the final tournament, which is kind of, I think, a testament to the creators that they're making something that both young people and older people can read and enjoy, which is really kind of what all ages books should be. All ages doesn't mean it's dimmed down for kids. It means literally that anybody can like it, much like the Carl Barks and Don Rosa duck stories. Loved them as a kid, love them even more as an adult. This one gets a big thumbs up and a buy from me. If this isn't your cup of tea, it's still a borrow. So go to the library and borrow it. I'm sure it'll be at libraries all over the place because, you know, it's aimed at people who the age group that goes to libraries a lot. So this gets at least a borrow. Go ahead, read the first one if you like it. Read the next two, but I'm giving it a buy. Joe?
Cory, I have a question for you.
Is it how do I turn off the sound on my phone?
Nope, because we'll be getting to that when we get to geeking. However, Cory, when criminals in this world appear and break the laws that they should fear and frightened all who see or hear, the cry goes up both far and near for whom?
Underdog.
Of course. And I read Underdog. Underdog, speed of lightning, war.
Is this about Underdog lady who dresses like Underdog and dances at parades and is on the Howard Stern show?
No.
Oh.
However, it is from American Entertainment. As you know, they've done various cartoon characters, and they were doing Underdog. And in one of the moments of Discount Comic Book Service was doing the discount we talked about, they had a bunch of these Underdogs at a really ridiculous discount price. And I thought, you know, these would be fun to get and to read. And this is a case of serendipity, baby, because I got 1 through 4 and I thought, oh, cool. And I kind of browsed through it. And in Underdog 2, it had a very determined Underdog flying off because he had to go fight Simon Bar Sinister, who apparently had in issue 1 trapped Underdog with all his villains, obviously. And of course, Underdog was there to save, why can't I think of her name? Was it Sweet Polly Purebred?
Yes.
And what Underdog didn't know is he had an ally that was also trapped, not in the cage, but in the city, because Simon Bar Sinister figured, you know, what the heck, if I can't attack Underdog, I will just, or I can't rule the world, I'll just rule this city. And through the course of the fight, the name of the superhero that befriended Underdog was a cat. You wouldn't think it would be, but the cat's name was Bombay. And Bombay selflessly helped Underdog escape and then took his place in the cage so Underdog could go fight Simon Bar Sinister. And of course, as you're reading the 3 parts, part 1 ends in the cliffhanger of, what are we going to do because now Underdog's trapped? Part 2 is, okay, now Bombay is trapped. Well, part 3, yeah, it's a kid's book. You know, it's a funny book. He ends up winning. But what happened when I got to issue 4, it was when I realized it was a different story. It was actually the first appearance of Bombay. And when Bombay first showed up, Underdog thought he was a villain. And it kind of was because it was apparently a shapeshifter who was able to change its shape and convince Underdog that Bombay was really a villain. And so, of course, there was the obligatory fight. And then, of course, they realized they're on the same side. And it was, you know, it was just a lot of fun to read because, first of all, it has all of Underdog's villains in one. And there's always quipping, like when Bombay and Underdog finally team up, they go, "There's no need to fear. Underdog is here." And Bombay goes, "You always do the rhyming thing." Of course, it's my bit. Why? What's wrong with it? You know, so there's a lot of little fun like that. But it was interesting because the one comic, like I said, was Underdog, and that had the 3-parter with introducing who Bombay was. And then, of course, Underdog and Pals was the three-parter of a different comic book. And, of course, you get the extra things in, like the world of Commander McBragg. And there's Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley. And there's always a couple other guys who pop up that you're like, oh, my God, I didn't even think of those guys. What's more interesting, like Tudor Turtle. I can't even say his name without sounding obscene. And in the back is a quick reprint of one of the ones they did in the 70s, back when I believe Carlton was publishing the books, and I think Gold Key as well.
Oh,
and it's
the
all
Carlton stuff looked ugly.
Oh, it does, because they must have just taken copies right off the comic book, and they did some rhyming and stuff, so it was okay. And usually, yeah, like this one was Underdog number 22 from 1978. The front page is cool because it has all of the creator credits, including the reprints. And I know we've talked a bit about American mythology in the past. Usually it's kind of one of those, hey, they're reprinting Zorro, they're doing Three Stooges, whatever. But if you're an Underdog fan, you should definitely try to find these out. I know these are sitting on better comic book shelves everywhere. And if you are a fan, or you remember the show and the goofy tie-ins, I think you'll enjoy picking these up. I know I did. Again, to recommend them, Underdog and Pals, 1, 2, and 3. You want to get all 3 because those are the three-parter. And then find Underdog 4, which will introduce you to his new ally, Bombay. Bombay.
So it's Bombay and not Dr. Bombay?
No, different thing.
Oh.
Different team. Yep.
I prefer Dr. Bombay come right away.
I am much better than Colonel Crittenton.
Oh, yeah.
Although, it doesn't matter. They all went down with the Titanic.
Well, it's been an hour of reviews, Joe. So we will shelve the review and maybe do more in a couple of weeks after we've made it to some actual comic shops. But
yeah.
Who never shut down during the whole thing? They've always been open and ready for your business, and that's these guys, our sponsors. Believe it or not, kids, this here podcast has sponsors, and that sponsor since day one is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best, bar none, web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a website, head on over to DreamHost.com, put in code CRAYZ, that's KRAYZ, and get $20 off your first year. Now, if you would like to advertise here on any of the Solitaire Rose Network podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Also, head on over to eBay and look for user Crazy, Krayz. That's Joe Crazy Writer, who's always telling us about the eBay in every episode of Crazy Comics and Stories. If you would like to contact us, you can do so. You can give us a call at 952-856-0519. Leave a message and we'll play it on the show. Or you can send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And I never shut down either. I kept doing podcasts like all of these. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about. Every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast, and he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. And if you think that I'm on all of these podcasts, you're wrong, because Scrabbling Across the West is at scrabbling.solitairerose.com, where musician Dave Cofell and his wife Stephanie travel across America and then sitting down to play Scrabble and talk about the day. That's at Scrabbling Across the West, scrabbling.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha. And there's one other person who didn't shut down that we know of. Joe?
Who's that?
What's going on the eBays?
Oh, see, all these things that are free that you can check out. And the eBays have been rocking like crazy. A couple things, I'll just kind of blast through them. I sold a Michael Turner Art Edition, Best of Michael Turner, Volume 1, Number 1 from Aspen Studios. That was just published this year. Cory, did you ever watch the Croft Super Show? With Captain Cool and the Calm and Dr. Shrinker. Dr. Shrinker, he's a madman with an evil mind.
The only one I remember is Electro Woman and Dyna Girl, though.
Electro Woman and Dyna Girl. I remember all these things. And I actually had it in the new Croft Super Show. I had a really beat up copy because they did a few issues of this. Gold key, and then I had a Whitman logo variant. If you got these in mint condition, they're silly money, but mine was only in good shape. I must have picked it up somewhere along the way. Graphic novel from Colleen Doran, her series A Distant Soil. This was Volume 2, The Ascendant. I believe this was when Image did the reprinting of them. A couple odd magazines. Scry magazine, number 11. Scry was in 1995. It was a magazine that basically was tracking all the collectible trading card games. If you wanted to know if your Magic card went up in value or not, that would be the place you would need to go. I'm just looking at some other goofy. The Comic Scene magazine. I don't know if you ever picked that one up, Cory, when it came out. That was from Starlock. It was a glossy magazine. No price guide in it, but just all talking comics. Like this particular one had Terry Beatty speaking about Dick Tracy, had Steven Spielberg talking about Tiny Toons.
Dick Tracy!
Tiny Toons was starting to come out. There was Spider-Man versus Spirit of the Earth, Terminator, New Nightmares, Enemy Ace, Warpaint. And again, this was a glossy magazine the way Starlog was. And I have no idea how many issues went, but I do know I picked them up because it was fun reading. Do you remember, Cory, the retailer thank you that was given out for X-Men #1 being the best-selling comic of all time?
Yes. Wasn't it a plaque of some kind?
There may have been plaques. I know more of they had the hologram.
Oh, yeah.
Of the entire cover. If you put all the cover together, it had the X-Men attacking Magneto. And you could buy...
was the extra fold-out cover of the 5th week of X-Men #1.
And it was, there's 2 different versions, a silver, which is fairly common, and I had a couple of them and they're gone, and the gold one, which is less common. And apparently you got it depending on how many of these things you bought. A few more Dynamite magazines disappearing. I sold my Thanos series from 2019. That was more of an origin of Gamora. Again, I read it. It didn't make the keeper pile. Sandman #21, which apparently is considered hot. And I guess it's because that's really the first appearance of the Endless together. Most of my Sandman I sold. And the few I kept have autographs. The ones I have left are sitting on the eBays. Cory, did you ever pick up DNA Agents?
I love DNA Agents. DNA Agents and Crossfire are the main reason why I will buy anything Mark Evanier writes.
Yeah, I know there's a graphic novel out with it.
Fantastic books.
I happen to sell the Super Special, which came out from Anarchic Press after the original run. Was it Eclipse or First? I forget who the original. Yeah, when it first came out. So, and this one dates from 1994. Not terribly expensive, but kind of hard to find when you're not looking. A couple other things to mention. I found a retailer set of Ultra Prints. What Ultra Prints were are oversized editions of trading cards. In this case, these are the ones from 1994 Fleer Ultra X-Men set. Again, Fleer Ultra is their premium line where the card isn't your normal trading card width. It's just a little thicker and really big in baseball. They did the same thing with the other sports, but this was when they started doing it in the non-comic line. I know they did Spider-Man. I don't know if they did a Marvel, but they did the X-Men in 1994. And then when you bought it, you got in the case, you got an envelope that had 5 of these Ultra Prints, which were 10 inches by 6 inches. And then they gave you a promo poster that you're supposed to stick up. Well, for some reason, I have a set that just didn't, it survived from 94. Obviously, at the time, we were buying boxes of these things. They weren't just, onesie, twosie. We're buying caseloads of these because trading cards were hot. And of course,
hot.
Now they're not. I sold a hardcover when DC was doing their DC Comics Classic Library. George Perez of America. It was George Perez doing Justice League of America. Good art. So stories. And I sold something, a couple things that it's one of those where you're like, did I really want to sell these? But, that's what I'm trying to do. The first one was the only copy I'd seen on eBay of Walt Disney's The Scarecrow of Romney Marsh #2 from Gold Key. These are fairly rare in any. I've had 2 of these on eBay, a reprint from 79, and then this is one that I had from 65, and they sold instantly. And I thought I usually put a fair price on them, but then the reason it sold so fast, I'm thinking, maybe I should have gone a little higher. I'm greedy. Cory, who was the star of Scarecrow of Romney Marsh?
Patrick from the Prisoner.
Yeah, McGowan. Yep.
McGowan, that's it.
Yep. And that, I would love to watch these, but they're not on Disney Plus, and the DVD set that came out is running like $400. The final thing I'll blab on about, a little bit of sentimental value on it. Cory, you remember the first Amazing Spider-Man I ever collected because I talk about it ad nauseum every so often?
Yes.
And you remember what I did with it?
You slabbed it.
Yep. I sold the last of my original Amazing Spider-Man run. It was Amazing Spider-Man 167. This was, and the reason why this kind of tugs on me nostalgically, because this was back in my golden age of comics. I was, I started with 179. I branched off into other things. I didn't, I kind of ignored DC. I didn't do Conan, Fantastic Four, because my cousins had runs of it. I discovered Nova because he crossed over. I discovered who the Punisher was. I got as far back as 123 without having the 129 or the it was 123. That was after Gwen Stacy passed away, right?
Yes, 122 was where she died.
So, and I knew who she was because my partner Pat let me read his collection, and I knew early Spider-Man because I was able to pick up those paperback size, very, very small reprints of the early Spider-Man.
Yep.
And and I worked my way backwards. And oddly enough, my first exposure of X-Men was, I believe, was it 160, 161? Because Punisher and Nightcrawler. No, 160 was Spider-Man movie. I think it was 161, whatever. You can look them up. Anyways, these were all before I sold comic books. These were before Gruber and I got together and decided we were going to go to Comic Cons and sell comics. So this was back when Joe was just a pure collector. And I remember having all my comics in a comic box. I'm sorry, a beer box. If you remember those, when we used to get a case of like 24
Oh yeah.
beer, and I had them all in baggies, and I would take them out every so often. I'd line them up, make sure they were all in proper, and I would, this is before I discovered comic boxes, before I discovered bags and boards and things like that. And over the years, I sold a lot of my comics. I'm glad I never sold my first Amazing Spider-Man just for sentimental reasons. This is the last of my original comic books that I bought before I got the bug in me to sell. So to me, it was a sentimental thing. I didn't realize it was the last one. I kind of suspected it. I'm not mad I sold it because I have them in reprints. I have them in Marvel Unlimited. It was just one of those things that kind of tugged at my heartstrings. So I have no idea if the person who I sent it to is going to even listen to the podcast. I do send a little flyer with everyone, kind of promoting us. And of course, I'm still kind of slow at work, so I'm sitting on my bum doing eBay all day. Sorry, I didn't mean to wax nostalgic, but man, this one really hit me when I sold it. I didn't realize I kind of missed those fond days where it was my golden age. Comics were obtainable. I mean, I thought actually I would own Amazing Spider-Man 1 someday because it was only going for the princely sum of $150. Comic books are selling for $150. I could do that. It's just take me money, but I had a goal. Back then, my goal was to collect one of every Marvel comics, not counting the Golden Age. So even then, I was aware of what the Golden Age of comics was. But I'm sorry. I'm feeling verklempt. But I got more going. I spent most of the day putting stuff on eBay. Some of the stuff I talked about today will end up on eBay's. You know where to go. KRAYZ. You know what to do. If you see something you like, let me know you listen to this here podcast because I got tons of stuff I could just toss in as a freebie and hopefully make a memory of your own. KRAYZ, come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I start putting googly eyes on the couch cushion so that I feel like I have friends.
Is it when you take a glass of milk and blow bubbles in it with a straw?
No, it's Freaking and Geeking Joe. What are you freaking on?
I got a lot of problems with. No, actually, I don't. I gotta say that for Festivus. We're gonna be.
Festivus.
Oh yeah, but that's one of the things I like about it is that I hate it. Other than the fact that why can't I think of his name? The actor just passed away. Jerry. No.
Oh, Jerry Stiller.
Stiller, thank you, Stiller. I'm thinking of his son. I got his face right in my.
Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller. There we go. Yeah. So he passed away. So that's kind of a bummer. It's there's a lot of that going on where you'll see this musician passed away or this creator passed away or this actor passed away. And it feels sad, but I also don't because you look at the age. Oh, he was only 95. Yeah, it's sad he's gone, and my heart's out to the family. Not so much if he'd passed away and he's only 20 or something like that. So he had a good life. And a lot of times these people, they pass away of natural causes and they're with their families. So if you got to go, that's probably a nice way to go. A lot of TSA news going on. You probably saw that TSA is preparing to check passengers' temperature at roughly a dozen airports. You want the really bad news? I was just given a rectal thermometer. I was also given a bunch of bidding lines. We're rebidding our shift. There's a lot of... Yeah,
Are you doing this like every 2 weeks now?
Well, now it's official. I actually got the bidding lines, and what they're doing is they're taking us off the leave I described, the weather and safety leave, and they're putting us on administrative leave, which is, I guess that's what you get paid for if they tell you to go home and sit, because I'm still on standby. This won't take effect till June. I won't bid on it till. I think, where are we now? Blah, blah. Next week. I'll probably be complaining or celebrating about it in 2 weeks because by the time 2 podcasts drop, I will know what my bid is. They're doing it phone style, so I got like 5 minutes to call in and do it versus where we all just show up and jump into a small room that they rented at the airport because they're still trying to do the distancing stuff. They don't want us all together. We have had a case of coronavirus at the airport. It was an officer who reported getting it from outside, and he had not been to work in over 2 weeks. So, knock on wood, he did not bring it to the airport. So, my conclusion is eventually we're going to get it. And when I get it, I just hope I hope it's not my final roundup. But, Cory, if it is, promise me you'll podcast with somebody else.
Oh, of course. I already have plans.
Oh, good. My plans, of course, are more or less, just let me die gracefully. Boy, that's kind of a bummer. Cory, I think that's it for me. Cory, what are you freaking on?
So let me guess, you want to die peacefully in your sleep, unlike your grandfather who was surrounded by people screaming that he needed to hit the brakes.
He did.
Yes. Let's see. What am I freaking on? Wear your masks. Wear your masks. Wear your masks. Wear your masks. Wear your masks.
Except if you're Batman, you get grandfathered in.
No, he needs to wear a mask too.
You're kidding. Batman would have figured this out already. Look how fast he cures the Joker's crap.
Yeah, but if you look at his mask, he's not covering his nose and his face. And, I don't think they're manly. I don't think they're cool. Oh, yeah? Go to ProWrestlingTees.com. There are all kinds of cool wrestling masks.
Go
there
take
are all
a look
kinds
at
of biker masks.
Take a look at the MCDA page. They just put up a thing where they want people sharing their masks, and there's some really killer ones out there. Go talk to my buddy Turbo. He'll show you some of his Bane masks.
I even have a Marty Skrull villain mask. Because I'm a villain.
Do you know our old buddy Dags over at the Amish Baby Machine? He's got one with his logo on it.
There you go.
You got all sorts of reasons. Just don't be a pussy. Just wear it. Oh, it's taking my rights away. Yeah, you're the type of guy to flick down the light during the blitzkrieg. I want to turn the light on. I don't care who's bombing us.
Not only that, hey, they're taking your rights away. You're not allowed to drink and drive anymore. It's my car, my rights.
What? I'm going to go with bubbles in my milk and shut up.
Oh.
Bubbles.
Second thing I'm freaking on, DC's whole distribution thing is just a gut-wrenching nightmare. I know they wanted to get books out. I know they didn't want to be subject to Diamond's whims and everything. But to pick two retailers and say, you're doing it, and then more and more, even the big shops are saying because of the costs of shipping and packing and shipping, they're not able to sell the books at a profit because it's just the DC stuff. DC, come on, man. I understand the whole Tuesday thing. You probably could have gotten shops to go along with that if you hadn't also done this stupid crap. And here's the other problem with that. You're not shipping any of the big books through these secondary distributors. You're not shipping Batman. You're not shipping Superman. You're not shipping Justice League. It's all the piddly crap that you're only selling 30 to 40,000 copies of anyway. Marvel. I'm not happy with the fact that last issues of miniseries are going digital only. Just for the people who, I bought 4 issues of Hawkeye at the comic shop. Now I have to go digital for the last one. People want complete sets for a simple reason. A complete set will sell a lot better on eBay. So Joe talks about it where, okay, I'm going to buy it, read it once, sell it on eBay. Well, now you've only got 4 issues. So you've killed for shops for those. Because if I can only get the 5th issue on digital, I might as well just get them all on digital, or might as well wait for the trade. You're killing the sales on those things. I understand, but really, was there a need to rush them out? There wasn't. And then the last thing I am freaking on, Steve Geppi did a video conference thing where he talked about the return to comic shops, and they're doing a branding. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, and I don't want to look it up because it gives me a headache. But he talked about how put this branding on your books and it will make the books more collectible.
Yeah, it'll also make the ones that aren't branded collectible and so on. And stamp
Well, what
talk.
it'll be okay. All the books that come out in like June, July, August for whatever this, we're coming back bigger than ever.
Our comeback will be bigger than our setback.
Yeah.
Hashtag buy back the comic back.
Stop with the collectibles, dude. Stop. I want you to look at those collectible covers from 4 years ago. Go out on eBay and look at them. Bet you could get them pretty cheap, can't ya?
Cheap.
The collectible is a short-term thing. You're down to readers only anyway. Graphic novel sales are up 38% outside since the middle of March. It's not because they're collectible. It's because the stories are good and people want to read. Quit pushing the collectible aspect. Quit going to the QVC channel and this book will pay for little Tommy's going to college. No. We have bins and bins and bins and bins and bins and bins of collectible shit that no one wants. If you push that it's a good read, that it's entertainment, that it's solid entertainment, that it's entertainment you can't get anywhere else, people will buy. They'll come into the store. If you're pushing collectibles, how's that Hallmark store doing? Okay, how's the Franklin Mint plates doing? How are the collectible spoons doing? Once you make it a collectible instead of a medium, you're on the road to Grandma's got a bunch of comic books that she puts around the house up on top, like with her collectible spoons. Gives me a headache. Joe, what are you geeking on? And you know what else I'm freaking on that I completely forgot?
What's that?
Joe didn't turn off the sound on his goddamn phone.
Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. See, one of the things I do, you gotta remember, I grew up in the day and age of, grab a 20, 30 bucks of quarters and head to the arcade Friday night. And so what I do is when I play a game, it's usually on my phone, I'm more than willing to drop some money on it if the game's pretty good. And the one that you hear beeping in the background is a real-time game called Wild Frontiers. It's a beautiful game in terms of graphics and stuff. But what happens is you have to kind of keep an eye on things because there's an event going on where apparently the uber strong, either by the fact that they paid lots of money to upgrade their thing or they were the first ones on, are running around attacking smaller settlements. And what sucks is you'll spend all day getting your settlement up to a certain strength, go to sleep, you wake up the next morning and find out you've been wiped out. They have things you can do. You can put up peace shields to keep yourself protected, whatever. And when I complain about it, of course, they say, well, there's a lot of free things you have to do. And I said, I'm not complaining that they're tough. I'm complaining there's no way to protect yourself from them. It's more of a social aspect game. Oh, by the way, I think I've spent about 70 bucks on this month alone on the various games. I'm not talking like $70. I'm talking like $1 here, $5 here, $10 here. I think I did actually a $20 purchase on donuts in the Simpsons games. And people are like, oh, why you do it to freemium? Remember what I said. My Friday nights used to be grabbing $20, $30 in quarters and blowing it at the arcade. If I like the game, I will drop some money. Plus, I know it tends to go to the developers, which is kind of nice. I'm not just dropping money at nearby. Did I talk about going over to Dreamhaven?
No, you did not.
Oh, I gave Greg a call on Monday because I got that catalog number. Was it? Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Fell on the floor. Catalog number 299. It's the first catalog in so many years. And what I did is I gave him a call and I picked up a book. And this is a solid book. It's called The Unique Dreamer, A Tribute to Harlan Ellison, edited by Preston Grassman. And I'm trying to find the see the publisher. It's published by PS Publishing. Possibly a collector item. I dropped about $80 on this book. Why? Because A, I wanted it, and B, it was for Dreamhaven. Because if I try as I can, I'm trying to support my local guys, and if everything goes as planned, knock on wood, we're going to have some stories of visiting comic shops in the next couple podcasts. So put your money where your mouth is. I've certainly done it. You give them a call, give them a ring, say, hey, what do you got that you must have something you're missing in your collection. Either email them or call them or check online, check their eBay, check their websites. It's all sorts of things going on. A couple other things that momentarily geeking on. I saw that both Bone and Freak Brothers are up to be developed into animated series. So I'm kind of really excited about that. I think those Freak Brothers has apparently been, I think both Bone and Freak Brothers have been in developmental hell for years. But now with the advent of streaming services, hopefully it gets done. Speaking of watching, I started to watch the second season of Disenchanted 2. That's the not so funny, more serious, fantasy-oriented show from Matt Groening. I enjoyed the first season. I know the second season's been out for a while, but I've been eBaying a lot. I just gotta get off my eBay occasionally and just go look at something because there's so much online that I'm just not looking at. Even today, the books that we interviewed, I sat on our porch and just read comics. And you know the reason why I didn't stop? I stopped reading comics, Cory. Do you know why?
To do this here podcast.
Nope. I remembered I had some eBay stuff I had to pack up and ship.
Oh.
So
it's not your love of our listeners that made you stop. It's your love.
That's what keeps me selling on eBay. What keeps me going here is the fact that we've been doing this for 10 plus years and 450 episodes. A couple other things I discovered.
We destroy our enemies.
Yes. Lament their women. No, they lament when they see us. Really? You killed them? Couldn't you let me just have one last fling?
And we're a national treasure.
Cory, were we podcasting when I took a trip with my wife down to Graceland?
When did you go?
I don't remember.
I don't remember or not.
I don't. If we did.
I went to Graceland in 1995. And,
I would have to check.
I might have gone this year, Joe. Ask me, Cory, why would you have gone to Graceland this year?
Why would you have gone to Graceland this year, Cory?
They were doing a 25th anniversary Twin Peaks convention there.
Oh. I don't remember when. No, I don't think because I know it was a my wife and I were gone for a week. We flew into Memphis, stayed there a couple days. We toured Graceland. If you go down there, definitely check out Sun Records more because Sun Records is phenomenal.
Yes.
And I'm having
is just weird.
Graceland's weird because it's a mansion, but it's a 1970s mansion, and it's pretty much frozen in time from when Elvis passed away.
And the house itself is not that big.
No, not really. You'd think mansion it would be. What was kind of cool is that when they made the hallway with all the plaques and awards that Elvis got, because he was very, very generous with his money and his time, but he was very humble about it and didn't really toot his own horn. Because even my wife who knows more about Elvis than anybody I know, was surprised by that. We also, from there, we took a rental car and went north along the Mississippi River and did the Mississippi River Road, which goes all the way from Itasca Park in Minnesota all the way down to where Mississippi dumps itself into the Gulf of Mexico. And I've taken a trip from St. Paul north. This is the first time I've gone from Memphis north. And we did stop in Metropolis, Illinois, which was the adopted home of Superman and the famous Superman Museum, which was amazing to walk through because as you walk, not only are you I'm seeing things like had it, sold it, had it, but he's got a lot of props and things from the the Superman TV shows and from the movies and things like that. And he's got a lot of things you can buy. And then we continued, we visited like 11 wineries, which was a good thing because I was driving, Chris wasn't. And with the rental car, we could buy one at each place. So it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, when I drove through, and I can't remember the town, it was the birthplace of Seeger, the man who created Popeye, but his museum was closed. And it killed me because I was driving by and it's like, it's right there and I can't go. I don't recall visiting many comic shops doing that. So this may have been before we were potting, but it was a fun trip. If you don't have enough Elvis in your life, Cory, though, you could go over to Hulu because they have a two-parter called Elvis the Search, which is originally on HBO and now on Hulu. A lot of audio tape. The first time I've ever heard Colonel Parker talk. A lot of, cutaways, showing clips of the shows he was in. Lots of music. And it starts with the, if you've never seen the Elvis 68 comeback special, even to this day, the beginning and the end of it just give me chills. I mean, imagine everybody thought Elvis was washed up, and he was because he got kind of sidelined. While rock and roll continued with the Beatles and the Stones and Bob Dylan, he was stuck doing those god-awful beach movies. Well, when the 68 special hit, it kind of reminded people that Elvis was still a force in rock and roll. And it just starts out, I don't know, go look at it. It's on the YouTubes. It's on, they got all that stuff. So, but that's on Netflix. Chris and I watched that over a series of a couple nights. We rediscovered Hill Street Blues.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know I had the first season on DVD, although I might have chucked it. And again, you watch it and, you're really sophisticated now because you're like, okay, that's really, you mean the cops run around and they don't have radios on them? They're not wearing bulletproof vests. They're not, this is not cop procedure. We gotten a little sophisticated, but it's still fun to watch. And there's still one of those, oh my God, it's that guy, because you see the different people who starred in it. I think we saw one guy who had been a regular on MASH, and then there's people who are like, who is that? Pause, look up IMDb, whatever.
You know what I find fascinating about that show? When it first came on, it was, wow, it's not as clean and kind of grungy and everything. But
there's a lot of action going on and people walking around.
The end, oh man, the station looks like a mess. It looks like a real police station because you're used to on cop shows, they would only have the stuff that was needed for the scene. But over the years, they just let stuff accumulate on the set to make it look more realistic. I found that fascinating when I rewatched it a few years ago. Just how the show became more sophisticated and more real and kind of more grungy and realistic as it went on.
That was probably a lot like MASH, because MASH was the same way. You're watching the early episodes and the guys don't even change gloves going from patient to patient, and you're like, ooh, you just kind of quiver a little. But then they've actually employed an MD or two who started, no, that's not the way it worked. I said, no, they didn't have that back then, So it got a little better. About the only thing that the one constant that stick with me is the actress who played the wife. I think her name was Barbara Bosson.
Yes.
Beautiful actress. And I think she actually won, she was nominated for Emmy Awards on it. But, oh my God, her character just bugged the shit out of me. In the middle of the crisis, she just comes bursting in. She has the run of the station. She can, he's trying to defuse a crisis situation. Oh, you got to do this. Oh my God, a character you want to backslap. I know she mellows out later on, but she bugged me way back in 1980, and she's bugging me now. So kudos. I mean, I give kudos to the actress if that's what they were supposed to do, because, just like you and I express admiration for the heels in wrestling. I mean, she was definitely a thorn in the side of everybody. Did I mention my cousin he did his own mini comic back before mini comics were mini comics called
Yes.
Kaiser the Dog. He sent me a comic book that he did about 10 years ago. It was written by a friend of his, Lee McGee, and he illustrated it back in 2013. It's called RL Season 1, crappyclassics.com. And he kind of sent it to me like, is it just something goofy we did? Oh, I'm reading it wrong. It's called lo-fi stuff. Or I guess, no, that's how he describes it. He describes it as lo-fi. He wanted to do an old school, totally rough, draftish type thing, back to drawing board comics. He did it with one of his friends. He says it flirts with stereotypes, flirts with racial stuff. But I got to tell you, some of it has like an Archie Bunker element to it. He said they made these comics, they had them printed, and they just kind of sat in a pile. And since I kind of came up with, reprinting the Kaiser and putting it online for everybody to ooh and ah over, he sent me one, and I read it, and it's good. It's certainly on par with anything else that's been ever self-published. The characters are fairly, did you ever read Hal and Bob
Yes.
mini comics when they came out? Hal and Bob was done by Tom Perry, Mike Rittenhouse, and I will bring up the third person next week. And they were kind of a counterpart to Jess Heitland, who was doing Crazy Comics Retailer. The namesake, of course, of this here show and my second shop, because obviously the Crazy was based on me. And
Crazy Comics Retailer, which
and eventually
became just Kray.
And it was fun because Bob and Hal had a crossover with Kray, which was kind of cool. And of course, Butch knows more about it because he wrote a lot of it and just drew it. And this reminds me a lot of Hal and Bob comics. I'm just going to look at one where the guys are like, I'm hungry. Let's call Pizza Horse. And the other guy, Pizza Horse takes too long. Time to send old Elmer to the glue factory. Last time he screwed up our order. We got a pepperoni and marshmallow pizza, and he took a dump in the yard. Click. Too late. I ordered a pepperoni and large mushroom. 2 hours later, the horse shows up in the front yard. Here's your tip, boys. He feeds the horse a piece of pizza, and also out the back end. That's it. And it's drawn in such a way, I'm like, this is, you're going to either look at it and go, oh my God, this is enchanting, or you look at it and go, this is crap. I don't think there's any way around it. There's oncoming jokes like Edna is, I don't know if it's, I think it might be their neighbor or something, but she's too big, can't fit through a door, and has to go to, she either gets rolled to the store or driven in a pickup. And it's color too. I don't even know where they got this thing published, but if you're interested, I'll Jerry kind of keeps a low profile on Facebook. He actually shut his down because he was getting too much negative crap, and then he slowly bumped it up, and he slowly brings in people. But if you're interested in this type of self-published stuff, and I love it, let me know, and I'll hook you up to Jerry. Maybe he's got a few copies he can sell. Point is, that's why comics will never die. It's guys like this who are always going to get together and make comics. It's people like last week's podcast, which, we'll own up to it, but all those comics we talked about were real comics. These people did it not because they're making money, not because they hit the $1 million jackpot, although you never know. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm waving my $13,000 copy, #1 mint shape at you. Oh, no, that goes at mint shape. Somebody's always going to be making comics, and when the MCBA, knock on wood, again, if they can get their fall con going, which is scheduled for October 10th, you're going to have a whole education building full of people who are just doing comics for the love of it, and a few people who do it professionally as well. So, we'll talk about Marvel, DC, but even today's reviews, there are a lot of smaller press guys or things you might overlook. So if you're sad and you're missing your Venom Space Knight or your Valkyrie or your Secret Society of Supervillains, I'm putting them on eBay. Go check out some smaller press stuff. You might be pleasantly surprised at what you run across. I'm geeking pretty good today. I'm not even going to talk about the Toy Story 4 Forky with wacky action that I found on clearance at Walmart. Didn't find any of those comic books though. Cory, what you geeking on?
First thing I am geeking on, I do like the fact that Marvel is putting out these digital trades, even though they're really not for me. And if you have Marvel Unlimited, you don't really need them. I think it's kind of cool that it's okay. What do we got that's probably not worth printing, but we're still putting out something new for people? I like the fact that Marvel made parts of Marvel Unlimited free. I like the fact that they're doing these cheapy digital trades. I like the fact that if you look through Comixology, they're putting up free books. Even though there aren't new comics, they're still kind of doing stuff to kind of keep you invested, keep you excited, and still putting out stuff. I just think it's kind of a cool way to reuse the stuff they have in their inventory. I talked about it a little earlier. Comic sales are up 38% if you look at graphic novels. That's the highest rising fiction category. Now, of course, religious stuff is up about 100%. But comics are doing really well. And for all the talk, I say it all the time. People say comics are dying. No, they're not. They're changing. And it's time that they change. The direct market was kind of a Band-Aid that was put on to save things. Well, it's time for comics to kind of grow out of that because video stores are dead. Collectible stores are dying. Things are changing. Imagine you're in a field where nothing has changed for 40 years. You're not going to be pulling in a lot of new people. I like this that they're bringing in new people. A lot of people who were kids and read manga are now still buying comics, but they're buying different stuff. They don't know about comic shops. They know the manga aisle in Barnes & Noble and other stores, so they still go to these bookstores and they go online and they read the stuff that way. Joe, who is your favorite captain of the Enterprise?
I still got to go with Kirk. I'm a Kirk man.
Well, Kirk's good.
It was more of a Wild West frontier. You felt like you were on the edge of, the frontier. Because half the time, we'll talk to Starfleet, but it's going to take, 2 weeks to get a reply,
Imagine it took longer.
Yeah.
Imagine, if you will, Captain Pike. Now, you signed up for the CBS All Access and watched Picard, right?
I'm only 2 episodes in, but it's on the to-do list.
Did you watch Discovery?
I have not. Although I listened to you talk about when the actor who played Pike showed up.
Yeah, the second season was very much about Captain Pike, Spock, and Number One. We got a lot of adventures with the Enterprise before Kirk was involved. They just greenlit a series based on that with those actors. And I'm just giddy. I'm so excited because they were so cool. It made Captain Pike a fully rounded character and a very interesting captain who, while he's still, they're kind of out there on their own, he's not the, I can find a way around this that Kirk was. Kirk was always finding a way around the rules. Pike learned to work within the rules, and I'm really excited about what they're going to do with it. When will it come out? I don't know. I don't even know when the next series of Discovery will come out, or when that Below Decks animated series will come out, or any of these things.
The 3rd season of Orville.
And finally, I hold in my hand 2 pieces of art, Joe.
I'll put them down. They won't be mint.
First, Katie Irons, who I've pointed out before, go to the web page, go to the Facebooks, and put in Katie Irons, Katie Ulika Irons, or Katie Irons Ulika Arts, and you'll see she's doing this really unique version of superheroes and video game characters that almost is like stained glass. She just got done with the Wolverine drawing, and it's funny. I put that I loved it, and she said, "Oh, want to buy a print?" I said, "I've already bought a print." Well, my print showed up of her version of Spider-Man. And one thing I'll also say, this is the nicest print I've ever gotten. The paper is thick, glossy. It's just a beautifully printed piece. It's printed so well that in the corners you can actually see the brush strokes. Absolutely wonderful. But I hold in my hands another thing that I like even more. And I'm having trouble not looking at it all the time. Joe, do you remember the movie Black Dynamite?
Wow, that's one I have not thought of in a long time.
Well, you knew there was a comic book of it, right?
Yeah, no?
Yes. A mini-series that was put into a trade paperback, and then, of course, the cartoon series. But there was a comic book version of Black Dynamite, which was also very in-jokey and very fun. And the inker on that book was Sal Buscema. I hold in my hand, they didn't really have a splash page, but the 20th page is a full page of pretty much tanks and guns and snipers and assault weapons and helicopters facing down Black Dynamite. Inked by Sal Buscema. And I hold that page of art in my hands right now. And while
Better be wearing gloves. Get your mask on.
I don't need to because it's in Mylar. They shipped it in Mylar.
Oh, Mylar, of course, copyright of the DuPont Corporation, is 100% acid-free, unlike the bags most of us stuff our comics into.
I just noticed there's a warship off the coast also aiming at Black Dynamite.
Yeah, they're going to lose.
But I finally have some original art from Sal Buscema. Now, if you want a sketch from him, they run around $250 up. And also, he's not adding anybody to the wait list. So, and Sal's in his 90s, so...
Holy cow, that's number one?
Yeah.
Becca Rominge? Oof. I think I know what I'll be doing all night.
That's number one on the Star Trek. And what's it called? Brave New Worlds, I think it's called.
Yeah. Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds, okay.
Yeah.
But surprisingly expensive, only $60 for a page that Sal inked. Now, the stuff he did at Marvel that he penciled and inked probably is in the hands of the high-end collectors, and that stuff's not going to see the light of day easily. But I just, I wanted to buy some Sal Buscema art, and I bought it direct from his art dealer. So if you go out and look for Sal Buscema on the internets, you'll find his art dealer. I will put a link in the show notes. It's Catskill Comics. And there are pages that he has inked, as well as other artists. But it reminds me a lot of when, I'd like to have some John Buscema art. And I didn't get around to starting to price it until after he died. And then it's like, I can't afford that. Or Kirby. I remember when you could buy Kirby pages when he was alive for $40. Yeah, you're not going to find a Kirby page for $40 ever. Anywhere. Ever. So, I'm not a big original art guy, as we know, but I'm very happy now that I own a page of Sal Buscema art. Believe it or not, kids, you have listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half. Actually, more like 2 hours.
We got a lot to say.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Just remember, do not grab another person's face mask. It's a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down. Hit my music.